Hi everyone. Today we have Cody here with us on the podcast. Hello.
The unnamed podcast, by the
Yeah,
way.
the unnamed podcast. We're still trying to figure out a name of this. So, but yeah, Cody, just introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, your journey in fitness, and just kind of how we met, and just kind of go from there. Just start the podcast off so people know who you are. I think most people have an understanding where I've been so far. So just introduce yourself, kind of give yourself a little bit of a plug.
Cool. My name's Cody. I'm a strength coach, pain-free performance specialist, nutrition coach, personal trainer, idiot, dumbass. I've been in the fitness industry for probably like 5 or 6 years now, training clients off and on, different gyms here and there. I worked in Mission for a while. At Anytime, then I moved out here. Worked at Fitness World for about 1.5 years, and then worked in management for 6 months. Absolutely hated it. And then that's why I'm now an independent contractor over here, because I don't like rules. I'm a rebel. So, and then kind of how I got into fitness. So I used to have a really bad like binge eating disorder that kind of rooted from depression, anxiety, ADHD, all that kind of stuff, which kind of just snowballed into me getting up to 360 pounds, being super unhealthy, super unhappy, just kind of in a rough place. I also had an injury around that time too, like shortly before that, which is part of why I exploded up in weight. And then I kind of like one day stepped on the scale, was like, holy shit, I'm 360 pounds and the next corner is going to be 400, and then I'm probably going to die pretty soon after that. So that's kind of what got me started, where I made the switch, and then I kind of got into lifting weights, and that was a good place to quiet the mind and kind of just relax and not think about anything else other than lifting that fucking weight or dying. And that's kind of when I fell in love with it, lost a ton of weight and got healthy and happy, and now I just kind of help people do that too.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's awesome, man.
That's me.
Great story. Yeah. I think we all have been in a place where obviously we have some sort of story that made us start where we are. You know, I'm going to be honest for myself. I kind of started out a hate towards myself.
Right.
It's a weird thing.
Hey,
you
whatever gets it done, right?
Yeah. You kind of start with a hate, but then you fall in love with the process and the journey, and you learn to I think love yourself is thrown out there a lot, but like you start to love yourself for the person you are, and you try to become better at that.
100%.
So I think that's really cool. I think the one thing that stood out to me too, that you were saying is like, you had that realization, like it was just that one moment that just like turned a switch. Cause I've had that too, where you look in the mirror and you're like, wow, I got to make,
fuck?
You're like, I got to make this change. Like and like, since that moment, you remember that moment so vividly, cause it's like, that was the day that you decided to make that change. I want to go back to what you're saying about, management and independent contractor as well. What differences did you see in that? I think a lot of people, not everyone here is trying to become a fitness trainer, not everyone, that's listening, but I think a lot of people need to understand, like, what's the difference that you had felt with being a contractor, and what did you feel that was difference between being a manager? Like, what were the things that, maybe pros and cons of it and things like that?
I think in the fitness industry, the further you go down the management route, the further away you get from, I don't want to say helping people, because you still help other trainers and stuff like that, but the further you get from the reason why you started, I guess. So like for me, I started in the fitness industry to help people transform their lives, lose weight, see their true power and kind of what they're capable of. And for me, it was very specific to like helping people lose weight and helping people gain muscle and gain confidence and stuff like that. And the further I went down that kind of management path, the more it was helping other trainers, which is fine and great. But for me, it's just not why I started this, right? So I kind of wanted to get back to that, and I kind of went completely the other direction of having like no rules and no one telling me what to do, and no deadlines to meet and no quotas to get to. I just want to train people because I love training people, and money is just secondary to that. And that's not really what I'm here for. I'm not here for money. I'm here to help people.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that's a hard thing too, is, as a fitness trainer, I think some trainers get in for the money. Because they see that like, oh, what do they charge a session? But like, we were just chatting off air about this, about like, some people don't show up.
Yeah, there's a lot of shit that goes on behind the scenes, right? that people don't see.
You got to eat that hour. You got to make sure like, you are able to somehow get income somewhere else as well, in the aspect of like, if you don't have enough clients or things like that. And, not everyone's very consistent, right? You get waves. Sometimes people are not as consistent and they come back or things like that. And it's, but once you get that clientele that's very consistent, it really helps you moving forward, and you kind of build that. But it takes a while. Like I think people think it's just like, I'm gonna get this and this and this.
It's a lot of hustle, and people don't get that. They think like, I'm gonna be a personal trainer and all my Instagram friends are gonna come and train with me. It's like, no, even if they said they were, maybe 20% of them are. And even then it's like, how much money are you really gonna be able to make? It's a hustle in the beginning. People don't understand that. It's a huge hustle. Like you got to work fucking hard to get to the place where you have that core that actually holds you up and gives you the opportunity to branch out and do different things like this, right? So yeah, if you're getting into personal training for the money, just understand it's a lot of fucking work, and you're probably not going to last long if you're only there for money, because if the passion's not there, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, you got to love it.
You got to love it.
You got to love it. And you know what? Like that was the one thing for me. You got to love to learn how to love people.
Yeah, 100%.
Being around people
100%.
all the time, right?
Yeah,
being personal with people, right? I think, one piece of advice and that I've learned myself, and you can probably relate with this, is, you can have all the best trainers out there. They can have all the same knowledge. But if one person can't be relatable with someone,
100%.
You're not going to be able to have a successful business.
You could have the best trainer in the world, but if you don't get along with them, it doesn't fucking matter. If you don't want to be there, if it's like an awkward hour of like just waiting for the time between sets to end, then I mean, you're not going to want to come back. So, and that's where like sometimes too, as a trainer, you kind of have to put like the science and all that shit on the back burner and just be like, let's just have some fucking fun today, and let's like go throw a ball and smash shit because you're in a bad mood, right? It's not always like, we don't always have to stick to this rigid plan, because rigidity is only so successful for so long before it's like, I'm falling off the wagon because I'm not having fun anymore. Right? So, and
with clients too, like this kind of what you're saying though is, you see a client probably more than they maybe see their friend in a week.
Oh yeah.
Right. If you have 3 hours with them in a week, they like, I don't even see my friends all the time in a week, like 100%. Every week. Right. So, you almost become like their friend in a way. Right. And, it's really cool in that way. That's what I've really liked about it is, you build a really good connection with people, and you learn to like really appreciate different types of people. There are such different types of people in this industry.
Yeah. And that's one of the hard things too, that people don't get, is like, maybe I have one client come in at 10 that like I got to really bring their energy up, right? And then 11, I got a client, I got to bring them down, right? So it's like I'm playing these different games all day, if you want to call it games, but I'm changing my attitude and my tone and my sort of aggression with them in the sets, and like how hard I'm pushing them, and it's a lot of dynamic that goes on too that I don't think people understand.
Well, yeah, it's like you're saying too, especially if you have a kid, 1 hour, and then you have a 50-year-old, and then you may have a 70-year-old, and then you have a kid again. Like you're going different energies like at every single hour, and it's something that like it's something that it was hard to adjust at first. For sure.
It takes a lot out of you, and like especially like for me, like I'm more of an introvert. So like especially if I'm teaching like a class or like something like that, where it's like I got a lot of different energies going on. Like I'm fucking drained at the end of it. Like I just want to go take a nap, and then I got like 6 more sessions after that. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes I don't think people really think about.
Yeah, and it's something that I've always preached, and I know we're talking probably more to the trainers right now that are going, but even if you're someone who doesn't want to do this for a job like its own, like helping someone or helping people is such a good way to like view different aspects of life, and it doesn't have to be like your full-time job, but there's a lot of reward in helping an individual. And I've had even people that are not trainers, like they're like, I want to be a trainer so I can just be there for a few hours and help people, and it's really cool to see when people start to see that point of view of it, right?
100%. Yeah. And I mean, like we're saying before, like if you're not in it to help people, you're not going to go anywhere with it. Like you gotta love helping people.
Oh yeah, you gotta love to learn how to love like helping people in general, right? Like it's just one of those things.
If you're not the type of person who like is going to go home after a session and be like looking up the fucking thing that they asked you that you didn't know, because you're just like, so you just want to know for yourself because you're passionate about it. And I mean, that's how you get good. You got to put in a lot of behind the scenes work, and yeah, it's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot that goes on.
I think what you say, I'm going to ask you this question, but I think a lot of times as trainers, we're asked questions about random stuff all the time. You know, I read this on this, and when you're asked a question and you don't know the answer to it, do you find that people are better reciprocated if you say like, hey, I don't know, but I'm willing to go look it up? Or do you find yourself, or have you found other trainers in the past, or this could be your past self, and you try to find an answer, then they're kind of like, they know that you're kind of BSing in a way? Like what's your experience with that?
I think like at the end of the day, you have to be able to say, I don't know. If you're an actual, a good trainer, you have to be able to say, I don't know. Let me figure this shit out. Because, I mean, what good is it for me to give you some half-assed bullshit answer that we both know isn't true? Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, and if someone is like, if you have a trainer and they have an answer for fucking everything, then they're probably bullshitting you.
Probably need a new trainer.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. They're probably bullshitting you like 90% of the time. We don't know everything. We're human beings, right? Yeah. So, yeah, that's my take on that. Like, you got to be able to say, I don't know.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a really important piece there, because, you know, it's something that, and especially if you're, you know, somebody might have a specialized field, right? In the training, right? There's so many, there's athletes, you know, mobility, strength, like everything. There's so many different philosophies on things like that. And going on top of that, I think my next question for you would be like, what's your philosophy on training and nutrition? Do you have a specific, something that you follow personally? Do you teach your clients? Like, what have you adapted over the years that has really made a big difference for you and or your clients?
Right. So I'll start off by saying, like, do whatever the fuck works for you. Like, there are no rules. There's no rigidity to this. Like, you can do keto if you want to. You can fast if it works for you. Like, same thing with exercise. Like, there's no sets and reps that are magical, right? So at the end of the day, do whatever works for you that you actually enjoy and you can see yourself doing for a long time. But in my experience for myself and for a lot of my clients, I find that flexible dieting in terms of like the diet side of things seems to work really well. So that's basically just like, you know, tracking your macros and making sure that the foods that you're eating are fitting within certain parameters. But then I've also had experiences with people with like, they just absolutely despise tracking and they don't want to do that. So I think you have to be adaptable. You have to kind of like have a few different approaches to try. And like, if something's not working, you got to pull the plug on it and move on to the next thing. Because if you give something to someone and it's just not working for them and you just keep trying to push it and push it and push it, like you're just going to push them away. Right. So, yeah, like I said, find what works for that person. Try a few different things, you know, I don't really have a one size fits all approach. Right. Yeah. So,
yeah, and I think going to what you're saying there is, I think it's really important for people to know, it's like, it's okay for going through a period of tracking and then you can stop. Like, you don't have to track for the rest of your life if you 100%. Choose to track, right? Yeah. And I think going on to what you're saying, it's important to know that there is no one size fits all. Yeah, 100%. Right. At the end of the day, I think, you know, we classify as fitness as there's so much of a different, like everyone has to be doing the exact same thing to reach the same goal, right? It's like, this diet works, this doesn't work.
If that was the case, our job would be so fucking easy. If everyone could just take this one plan and it worked for everybody, dude, my job would be easy as fuck. Dude, I'd be home at like 5 p.m. every day, you know, like, come on. Like, it doesn't work like that. It's not that simple. There's so many pieces to each person. Yeah. Like, they're all just a fucking puzzle. So, yeah. Well,
and this is going back to what we were saying about, like, you know, if you're trainers or, you know, someone's telling you, you have to do it this way or there's no other way, run.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah.
Run as far as you can from that person. Cause at the end of the day, man, it's like we're saying, you got to find what works best for you. Yeah. Right. Like everyone's job is different. Everyone's lifestyle is different. Everyone's day to day is different. And if you think that like you are going to only be doing this one thing for the rest of your life, it's not realistic.
No, not at all. It's like if I asked you to take me to Abbotsford right now, you know, there's 50 different fucking routes to get there. I'm not going to force you to go that one way, even though there's a traffic jam. You know what I mean? Like if there's a traffic jam there, we're going to find an alternative route, for sure. You know? So
that's a good analogy.
That rigidity, it doesn't always make sense. Yeah. So
Do you find that sometimes people need to be in a phase of really, really rigid and then, taper them back sometimes with
It can work. Yeah. It can work, especially with people that are maybe a little bit more on the obese end of things. Just for them, like if they've tried everything, just sometimes just getting them a little bit of success on the front end, like helping them lose that first 5 pounds quickly, right? Just to get that extra bit of buy-in for them to be like, oh fuck, like this is going to work if I stick with this, right? And then kind of transitioning them back to something less rigid and more flexible, right? And being like, okay, we're going to slow down a little bit. Now we got that first 5-10 pounds off. Okay, now I want to kind of move us towards something that's more long-term, right? So I think there sometimes is a time and a place for rigidity, but you have to be intelligent with your approach, and it has to make sense, and they have to understand that we're going to do this for now, but this isn't going to be the approach all the way through, right? And you really have to lay the groundwork for that so they understand. No,
yeah, I think the one thing, you got to be careful to who you're communicating that to, right?
100%.
I think going back to, there's no one size fits all. You got to know the person's story.
For sure.
You have to know kind of what their history is, right? If there's someone who's, been really hard on themselves for a long period of time, that approach might not work, right? But 100%. Then you have, like you're saying, you might have someone that's like that motivation at that beginning gets that ball rolling.
That's what gets the fire burning, and then from there it's like, all right, man, they're down for whatever. They're like, all right, I trust you now. Like, let's go. Like, what are we doing, right?
And trust is a huge thing with a trainer. 100%. Right? If you don't trust your trainer, it's like it's not going to work.
We're not getting anywhere if you're not going to do the things that I tell you to do blindly, you know. And I mean, question things.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Question things. Say why, right? And if it doesn't quite make sense to you, then maybe, poke a little bit more, try to figure it out. But we have to build that trust, otherwise it'll never work.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see once someone trusts you how much easier things become. And it's not that
100%.
Your job itself becomes easier, but it's almost like you ask them to do something and they're so willing to do it because they trust you now.
Yeah, because they've seen, maybe you've given them something before and they've tried it and they're like, holy shit, like, wow, that really worked. So now, anything else we try, it's like, all right, let's go, let's do it.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes too, I would say people even need to build trust within themselves too. Because I've even had clients before where it's like maybe they trust you, but they don't trust themselves to get it done. Like I've had clients in the past where I've trained them for 2 years before we've even touched on nutrition because they were like, nah, like I'm not ready yet. Like I'm not there yet. Right. And then like once they've been like, all right, like I'm ready now and let's do this. Like I'm trusting myself. I'm trusting you. Like, let's get this done. And they have that huge buy-in. Then it's like massive progress happens. Right. Like gonna name drop my client Chelsea here. Chelsea, if you're watching, she's an example of that, right? Because she had we literally trained for 2 years, right, before she even was willing to talk about it.
Fair,
yeah. And then once she did, it was like 50 pounds off.
Yeah, it's a huge, right?
And rolling.
I think, well, and this is that's what we can touch on too. Is if you do you don't have to be doing everything at once to
100%.
See results, right?
Yeah.
Like you can, like you said, train for 2 years and then be like, hey, you know what? Now I want to do a little bit of nutrition, right?
Yeah.
Same with you start with nutrition. You don't have to be tracking calories right away. You can start, hey, I just want to hit protein.
Yeah, 100%.
Start there.
I'm not going to be like, all right, I need you to track your macros, your micros. I need you to make sure you get 4 liters of water, do this, do that. It's like, no, that's not going to work for most people. Like they need to take this one thing, make it a habit, and then, all right, what's next?
Yeah.
Right?
And sometimes I don't know if this is something that you've done in the past, but for myself, usually what I'll do is you have your, in school you used to do that spider thing, right? You have your idea and then you spider off, right? So your main thing would be let's say you have someone, they want to track calories, your veggies and your fruit, right? Once you've done that, mastered that, you spider off to something else. And then you just kind of slowly build off of that.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what you touched on about the whole training. It's you can start your fitness journey off by doing one thing. You don't have to be doing everything at once. Yeah. Because if you do everything at once, it gets overwhelming, right? Yeah. Especially if you're not doing it before.
Well, and the thing too is a lot of people, they don't need much in the beginning. You just start going for a 10-minute walk every day after dinner and drinking a glass of water and you're like, holy shit, I lost 3 pounds. What happened?
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be complicated. And I think that's where a lot of people get so confused is because the fitness industry wants to make things seem so complicated. Because when you're confused and you're lost and you're like, where do I go? It's really easy to be like, this is what you need. You need to buy this right now because this is the fix.
It's easier to manipulate in a way.
It's way easier to manipulate, right? If people, it's like when people are confused and scared, they're easily, you know, sold to. So, just people need to keep in mind that there are a lot of people out there trying to prey on you and take advantage of your kind of lost feelings and your the space that you're in, where you feel like you don't know where to go and what to do, and you feel like you're trapped.
Yeah,
people want to take advantage of that.
Insecurities for sure, right? It's easier to, and you know, I'm not big like the manipulate, but like it's easier to influence someone who's insecure at the time, right? If you're really in your feels and you're someone who's like, you need this, and you're gonna feel the best you've ever felt in your life.
Tea is the answer.
Yeah. Then like it's easier to, you know, make that sale or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And if you find someone that you feel, if you feel like almost someone makes you feel shittier when you're like, especially a trainer or a nutrition coach or someone, like, you know, it's time to find someone new, right? And you know, I think the one thing that I ask from my clients especially, and you can probably relate to this, just honesty. Yeah. If you're not liking something, tell me. Like 100%. I want you to tell me. Like 100%. if you're not enjoying something, or you don't understand something and you don't understand why we're doing it, I'd rather be able to communicate it to you so you understand it, so you are actually trusting that process.
And you also have to be comfortable too that sometimes people aren't going to like it, and they might get a little bit upset with you, but at the end of the day, it's tough love, right? It's like, you need to do this shit. I'm sorry. Like, it's just the way that it is. And you have to also know like when you're pushing too far, and when, you know, there's a little bit of give and take on that too. But I think you have to be comfortable with that as well.
Yeah, it's one of those things too, like it hits the ego sometimes, but like if you don't fit with someone, you just don't fit with someone.
Yeah.
And it's hard, because if somebody's like, I just, like, you think like as a trainer, you're like, I'm not a good trainer. Yeah. Like if somebody drops you, or, you know, and you know, it doesn't, like I've had that in the last 5 years, maybe a handful of times, where it's just the fit. And even too, as a trainer, I can be like, that me and you just don't click.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and it's nothing against them. It's just, we want to try to make sure that they have the best journey possible, so that you can and be able to reach it.
And sometimes, like, kind of going back to my last point, sometimes you'll find too, like when you have that kind of client and you tell them what's what, you'll find a lot of times too, they'll kind of come around. Yeah. Right. They'll be like, all right, well, maybe I am not trying hard enough, or maybe, you know, like I've had clients before where like we said, I didn't feel like they had the trust in me to get the job done. Right. And I was like, well, you don't have to be here if you don't want to be. Yeah. Right. And then the next session, they come in with a completely different tune. Yeah. Right. It's like, all right, like I'll trust you now. Like, let's do this. Yeah. Right. So again, that's why you have to be comfortable with being a little bit uncomfortable sometimes, and kind of pushing people and being bluntly honest with them. And sometimes they're not going to like it, but they need to hear it. Right. Yeah. It's like, if you're severely overweight, like sometimes you need someone to just tell you, like, hey man, you're fat. Like, sometimes you just need to hear it, and it's not comfortable and you don't love it, but sometimes that's the thing you need to push you to get to the next level. Right. Yeah. So,
and it's one of those things, like, I think nowadays there's very interesting topics on different point of views of, you know, body shaming and things like that. And not that I'm not someone who doesn't like to talk about it, because it can really go down a rabbit hole, it's a very interesting, there's very interesting people out there nowadays in regards to, you know, you're not loving yourself if you want to lose body fat. You know, there's a lot of that out there right now.
For sure.
And I think it's controversial, because, you know, just because you want to become, let's say, healthier, right? Definition of healthy is different for everyone.
For sure.
Right?
It's a broad spectrum, but I mean, in the same token, we do know that, I mean, the heavier you are, the more stress on your organs, the more stress on your heart. There's tons of science to back this. It's undeniable for the most part. I mean, I'm sure there are a few outliers, just like anything. But in the same token, it's like, if you love yourself, don't you want to live a long, healthy life? Right. And I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole, but, that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things right now that, you know, and I'll just put the message out there for myself, and you want to chime in after, that's totally fine. But, you know, if you are someone right now that is trying to reach a goal, and, you know, you think that you're not loving yourself for going towards that goal, like, go towards that goal. Like,
100%.
It's okay. You are okay by doing that. It's not like, personally, I don't think that's that's shaming anyone in doing that way.
Not at all.
Because at the end of the day, like if you're trying to become a healthier individual, then you are doing something for you at the end of the day. You are loving yourself for trying to become healthier.
Even if it's something that's uncomfortable. Like for myself, like I've been going for a lot of runs lately and I fucking hate running. I fucking hate running. I hate it. Every single second I want to stop. But the thing is, like, I know that if I push myself to do it, I'm going to become a stronger individual. And I don't run because I hate myself. I run because I love myself and I want to get myself to that next kind of level of just like mental toughness and like being able to push through uncomfortable things. And I think a lot of people aren't very good at pushing through uncomfortable things. And that's just why they're in the situation that they're in. So just because you want to be healthy and you want to do some things that are uncomfortable doesn't mean you hate yourself.
Yeah. Well, and going back to, pushing through difficult, I think we've really built a society that has made everything really easy.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
I can fucking sit on my couch and order food here right now. Like,
all day. I
don't even have to leave.
We could just skip right now if we want to.
You don't have to leave your house for anything anymore. You can get a toilet brush, a donkey toy, and a fucking 4-pack of chicken McNuggets sent to your house like that, like 10 minutes there. It's crazy. It's nuts. But I think that's also why we need to be conscious of that and be like, fuck, my life is pretty easy. I sit at my desk, I sit in my car, and then I sit on the couch, and then I order skip the dishes, and I don't even fucking get any fresh air. Yeah. And you have to be conscious of that and kind of be like, all right, well, I should probably try to go outside for a minute, get a little bit of vitamin D, get a little bit of fresh air, and maybe walk more than 500 steps a day. And again, like that's why I say like the first steps for people don't have to be that complicated. Yeah.
So. Well, and then going on to steps, like that could be your one thing you start with.
100%.
Going for walks.
100%.
Right? Like split it up. Yeah,
that
3 10-minute walks. 3 10-minute walks a day, right?
Yeah.
It could be something as easy. Well, again, easy is different for everyone, but it could be
it's a relative term.
It could be as, I guess, simple to start as that, right? It doesn't have to be something where it's, you're working out even 3 times a week weighted workouts, right? Yeah. It could be starting with one workout a week with a trainer and having them, build you. And then, most of the times when people start with something like that, they want to come more once they see the routine.
You start feeling good.
You start feeling good. Yeah,
you have something to look forward to. And again, like you have this kind of friendship, almost this bond. And I think that's what's so powerful about personal training. It's like you have someone that is your friend that wants to see you succeed, that's checking in with you, that's kind of pushing you a little bit, right? And it's like you might not necessarily be able to do that on your own right now, but you work with that person for long enough, you're going to feel empowered and you're going to feel that you're strong and that you can do it. And then, hey, maybe you don't stay with your trainer forever, but maybe they're that springboard that takes you to a new lifestyle, that takes you to new places and healthier mindsets and, relationship with food and all that stuff. So yeah, I think for a lot of people that one little investment on the front end can make a huge difference in their life. Massive. And that's why like a lot of the stuff that comes across as like salesy and like, I'm like pushing you and like whatever. And I, sometimes I'm sure you've felt it too, where like you're a little bit uncomfortable talking to people, but once you've worked with a few people and you've seen how much of an impact you can make, it starts to feel less and less like you're being salesy and like you're pushing a product, right? Yeah. Now it's like, no, bro, like I actually want to help you. I'm not just, I don't give a fuck about your money. Yeah. Like, yeah, sure. It helps. Like I need to pay my bills.
Well, yeah, I need to live.
Yeah. Right? I need to live. I need to buy good groceries and like, but that's the back end of what I care about. Right. Like, cause I've seen people completely change their lives. Like everything changes. And I think fitness is that kind of cascading effect, right? You feel better, you look better, you have more confidence, right? You have more energy to go to get things done throughout the day, maybe pick up a new skill, a new hobby, and like it can take people to amazing places. Yeah.
Well, and it's going back to just saying like, your definition of health or your definition of your fitness level or what you feel, how you feel confident is going to be different than someone else's, right? Yeah. And I think that's a big message that I try to preach a lot is like, if you get to a point where you feel that you are comparing yourself to other people, then you have to relook at your values and of what you see as success or you see as health, because at the end of the day, you do not have the same genetics as I do. For sure. And they do not have the same like it's vice versa.
And right? that's also probably not the reason why you started. Like, did you really start to look like The Rock, or did you just start because you wanted to feel better about yourself? Right? Like, we don't have to look like Dwayne The Rock Johnson. And
those are the 1% in the world.
Those are the 1%ers.
Less than the 1%, right?
Who are also on testosterone replacement therapy.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good segue there.
Good segue, yeah.
What's your take on hormone replacement therapy and in general, what is your experience if you've had, you don't have to name drop clients or anything, but if you have had clients or, what has your experience been, or what is something that you think of it now? It's I'm gonna be honest, in the last 6 months, I've heard it more than I have ever heard it in the industry.
Yeah. I think there's no question that, like in terms of testosterone, that there's been a steady decline for the last, 50 years. Yeah. And a lot of that comes from like us not getting outside and not going for walks and just being sedentary and, eating shitty food, not getting enough sleep. And I think that for a lot of people, if your test is low, like there's no shame in getting it bumped up to a healthy level, right? Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. It's like you wouldn't question anything else. Like if your iron was low, you're not going to question taking an iron pill. You know what I mean? So like if your testosterone is clinically low, get that shit fixed. It'll make a massive difference in the way that you feel. Yeah. Like you're going to retain more muscle mass, you're going to be able to go for longer. You're going to have more energy. You're going to probably sleep better. You're going to have more sex drive. Like there's so many benefits to it that I feel like if you're low, just go fucking do it, dude. Like there's no reason not to. Yeah. There's nothing but upsides. Yeah.
And I think the hard thing nowadays, and especially when I talk to people, is a lot of doctors don't know about it yet. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Their practice, they don't have much. It's becoming more popular.
There's a lot of stigma around it. So
there's huge stigma, right? And it's like, if you're taking, and this, what we're talking is like, you're taking enough to like be
bring
a healthy
you to
level.
Normal human being.
Yeah. Normal level of whatever a male or female would be. Cause I actually think and personally don't know any, but I've done research and I do think females, if they need testosterone, they can get testosterone. Yeah, obviously, they're not going to be taking as much as a male would.
Well, at the end of the day. And there's a lot of evidence too to suggest that just literally taking birth control will plummet female testosterone levels, free testosterone levels. So, like, if you're on birth control, odds are your testosterone's probably out of whack. It's something like 80% or something crazy like that. So it's a huge number of women that have that issue. And like, if you have no sex drive, maybe there's a reason. Yeah. So. Sure. I mean, like energy and just muscle mass and all those things, right? Like women need muscle too. So yeah, I think that you should, if you feel like you have low energy and low libido and all these things, like go get tested. And if you're low, like there's no fucking shame at all. Nothing.
Yeah. And just a side note, like I'm going to be honest though, most doctors will not help you out.
Unless you're like ridiculously low, like 85-year-old man low. Yeah. That's the shitty thing, especially in our healthcare system. Shitty. And the range, like I had mine tested recently too.
It's like 7 to 28.
It's insane. It's like you could have the testosterone of a 95-year-old house cat, or you could have the testosterone of a superhuman. Yeah. But if you're not like if you're somewhere within that range, we're good. But like if you're just a little bit outside that, then we'll hook you up. But it's fucking crazy.
Yeah, like it's you could be between 7 and 28, and you could be at 9. And they're like, yeah, you're in the range.
Yeah, you're good. No worries. Oh, you have no sex drive and you feel like shit all the time. Sorry, bud.
Yeah. Well, and then this is where it gets to the point, and this again, we're not doctors, right? We're not. Take this
disclaimer.
Disclaimer, right? But what I've seen a lot is now doctors will prescribe antidepressant or anti-anxiety. Yeah. And they'll know that their patient is low in testosterone, but they'll now be prescribing them anti-anxiety or antidepressant. Again, if you're taking that and that's something that you need, I always support that. Absolutely. At the end of the day. But you also have to be as yourself. You have to make sure you get all those things down where it could be hormonal. It totally could be. 100%. Low testosterone could be depression, anxiety for sure.
For sure, yeah. 100%. If you bumped out that test, though, you might not need those other pills.
You might not need it, right?
You might not need it, so yeah.
And that's the one thing I always try to tell people is like, if you have to pay a little extra money to get those tests done and you have to go somewhere privately, do it, because in the long term,
it's worth it.
Oh, it's worth it. 100%. If you have to go to a clinic where, you have to pay some, and I've referred clients to, there's some, naturopaths, especially because they usually tend to have a different outlook.
They're more flexible, for sure.
And again, there are some doctors, I've actually met some doctors that are very, very knowledgeable and they are willing to help. But, if you're someone who's been worrying about it and you've been questioning it for a while, and you have to spend some money, spend the money.
Yeah.
Do it. Do 100%. The test. Make sure you go see someone and invest in yourself.
And I don't know about you, but like I get frustrated with what my clients' doctors tell them all the fucking time, dude. It's like, Jesus Christ, some of the diets that they recommend and some of the shit they recommend, and it's just like, I mean, I don't know a ton about the education that they go through, but from what I've heard, it seems pretty fucking outdated. And a lot of the things, especially in terms of nutrition.
Yeah, for sure.
The nutrition is butchered. It's terrible. Like, I don't know if it's a 2-week thing or a 3-week thing, but it's not long.
No,
I'll tell you that.
It isn't. I've talked to some doctors and it's not a long process they go through.
Yeah. So. And I mean, a lot of doctors are still demonizing certain food groups and saying, oh, sugar is the problem and shit like that. And it's just, I know and you know that that's not the case, right? And we have to look at things as a whole and lifestyle as a whole and a lot more factors than just sugar. But yeah,
it's interesting to, and again, we're not. I don't want us to be seen like we're bashing doctors because doctors.
I'm sure there are some fabulous doctors out there. Yeah. I mean, hey, if I come to the hospital, you hear me talking shit on the podcast, I still want your help, please.
Yeah, it's just. Something that we've experienced, and I think it's hard because there are doctors out there that are willing to help for sure. But I also think in Canada, our health system is very, very overbooked.
Yeah. Oh.
Very you have like what 5 to 10 minutes with your doctor. Like,
yeah. And they're like, okay, are you done? Get the fuck out of here. Stop talking, man. I gotta get on the next person.
They have another person, right? Yeah. And I think the hard thing is like. Especially if you're doing it over the phone.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Right? Like, and that's now seems like what it is nowadays, especially with everything that happened, right? It's like everything's over the phone. And it's like, when I'm talking to someone and I see their emotion, you can tell if I'm like stressed out or you can tell that I'm like anxious about something or I'm going through a hard time. But over the phone, there's no way. You just hear my voice.
Well,
right?
and they don't ask those questions a lot of the times, right? Like they don't ask about your lifestyle. They don't ask about your stress, your sleep, all the shit. It's just like, all right, which pill do you want? What are we going with here? You want red or blue?
Yeah. And going back to that, I think it's, if you've been someone who's been questioning, and we'll kind of go with this, but like, I think if you've been questioning getting your levels checked, get them checked. And if you have to invest a little bit of money, I would invest it.
100%.
For sure. And, you can always ask one of us. Like I said, I know some clinics that I've known some clients I've gone to. Right. I don't know about you, but
I might need to get your referrals.
But yeah, no, like it's one of those things that, I get frustrated a little bit with it because I would like someone to be able to, like you said, you become friends with a client, for example. You want them to feel the best they can.
100%.
And as a trainer, you can't always, sometimes Western medicine, sometimes that's the answer in certain cases. Mm-hmm. And especially like you were saying with how much testosterone has declined over the years. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. Like it is nuts.
And I think that's why our normal ranges are so out of fucking whack and why they're so terrible. And the other thing too is like normal should be a relative term.
100%.
Right? Like if I was at 1,000 nanograms per deciliter and I'm now dropped to 300, I'm still in the normal range, but I'm going to feel like fucking garbage from what I'm used to feeling like. Yeah. So it's like, why are we going off of these just bullshit, like rigid ranges that don't make any sense in actual real life? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's something that I've really trying to preach with in regards to what you're saying is like, it's relative. Like just because 25 is good, you could actually feel better at 22.
Yeah. Who knows?
Or you can feel better at 28.
100%.
Right. Like, and I'm going by Canadian.
Yeah.
Right. But I think, and this is a longer conversation down the road, but if you ever get to that point, make sure you base it off on how you feel, not what the numbers always say, right? The numbers will help.
And just like you question your trainer, question your fucking doctor. Question the fuck out of your doctor. Take your full 10 minutes, even if he's trying to kick you out at 5. Like, ask questions. Yeah. Because, I mean, sometimes they need to be questioned. Like, a lot of times they need to be questioned.
I've had clients that they won't even get a blood test.
Yeah.
They're like a 40-year-old male, and their doctor won't even give them a testosterone test.
It's fucking crazy, bro. Like, why am I not allowed to see what's inside my own fucking body? Like, it's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So, going off that, I think we've, hit some points there with the testosterone replacement theory. I actually wanted to go back to, we chatted about this a little bit earlier about, specific diets, and, I'm going to kind of bounce off about like doctors and, not having so much, not research, but so much, I guess, schooling, as you could say, as in nutrition. I guess for you, what have you seen to really help yourself? And what have you seen to really help clients when it comes to nutrition? And, we chatted about like tracking and things like that, but I think I'm asking more like specifics, like, like certain amount of protein. How do you usually base it off of going forward with your clients?
I think like for most people, the very first step is like, let's just get some fluids in you. Cause like most people, they have their morning coffee, they might have like a beer at nighttime, and that's like all the fluids that they're getting in. Next big thing is fiber. So many people are like so far off their daily requirements for fiber that like, if we can just get that in, if we just push in some fruits and veggies, like a lot of the processed shit that you're eating is just naturally going to kind of find its way out.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So if we can just, and I say this all the time, like, I don't want you to take anything away. I want you to start adding things in and see what happens. Yeah. Right. When we add in some fiber, we add in some water, you might be surprised.
You inherently take the other stuff out without even
because you're not starving all the time anymore, and you're not craving those things as much because you're actually getting some micronutrients and some good quality nutrition into your body. And then from there, like obviously protein is huge. Protein is huge. And a lot of people struggle a lot with protein, and I'm just like, just go get a fucking high quality isolate or high quality powder, right? I think a lot of people are also scared for some reason to supplement with protein powder, and again, it's just stigma and bullshit that's been propagated for the last 20 years. So yeah, get your water, get your micronutrients in, and then start working on the protein, and then from there, like, let the chips fall where they may. And if you kind of feel like you want to take it to the next level, we can maybe look into some other supplementation and some other things, maybe some greens powders. But I like to keep it as simple as fucking possible. Cause for most people, they don't need anything complicated. They just start working on the little things that we already kind of intuitively know are good. Right. And, things kind of just fall in place from there.
Yeah. I agree with the whole approach of like, adding things in per se, not taking things out. Especially to start a lot of people, you inherently just will not eat those things. For sure. It just happens.
Like, and I don't ever want to tell you that you can't do something.
It's actually a psychological hack too.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure.
Right? A lot of it's psychological at the end of the day.
100%.
Right? 100%. Like if I'm like, and most people will be like, what do you mean adding foods in?
because the second I go, you can't have those cookies anymore, you're going to want those things way more.
Yeah,
you're like,
sure.
Fuck you, I'm eating those cookies, man.
Like the whole
damn thing. Yeah. Yeah. The second I'm not looking. So that's why it just doesn't make sense. And it's actually being shown in clinical studies as well, that like people will crave things more when they're told they can't have them. Like this is actually a fact. It's not just it's not just a made up thing that we're talking about here. Like it's real. It's legitimate, and there's actual clinical science behind the mindset that goes with it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where we're going to keep preaching this, but there's no one size fits all either, right? But most of the time, like 80% of the time, you have your most of the time, like hitting your protein, your veggies, your fruit, your water is like where you need to start.
That's all you really truly have to do most of the time.
Most of the time for most people. Like
you'll find you're not going to be anywhere near as hungry. You're going to feel better. You're going to have more energy and naturally expend more energy. And things can go pretty fucking far just with working on those few things. Like I've even had people where they don't even necessarily track anything, right? Yeah. And they just start trying to get in like 3 servings of veggies a day. And then they start trying to get in like 2 palms of protein a day. And the next thing you know, like I lost 20 fucking pounds, dude. What the fuck? Yeah. And then maybe from there, once they kind of hit that plateau, you move on to the next thing. Yeah. You make it a little bit more complicated, I guess.
Yeah. And it really depends how far you want to go to, right?
For sure.
If we're talking about competitors stepping on stage, this is like way different. But
not everyone wants to be fucking shredded. Some people just want to lose 10 pounds and be able to play with their son. You know what I mean? So, and I think that's where people get confused too. Like in the gym, like they're like seeing people training for things that are different than them, and they're like, "That's wrong." You don't understand what people are trying to do. Yeah. So,
well, and this is we talk when we're talking here. We're talking to the what we would like as a general population, right? I think and I think people have to realize, like, you know, the people you see on Instagram and all these things, they're shredded to the bone. First of all, you don't know what, you know, they could be taking testosterone, they could be taking a whole bunch of other stuff. Who knows, right? Yeah. You also don't know, they could have the worst mindset to food and nutrition ever, but they're just like their insecurities is keeping them that lean. Yeah. You don't know their genetics. They could be a genetic like freak. And then fourth, I think the one thing is like you are seeing the 1%. Yeah. And like it might seem a lot because you're on social media. Yeah. But if you really think of how many people are in this world and the amount of people that you see on Instagram, it's actually so little.
It's ridiculously small amount. And the only reason you're seeing it so much is because you're in the fitness Instagram space. Yeah. And people don't understand that those algorithms are fucking powerful, bro. Like not everyone's seeing the shit that you're seeing, right? And I actually wanted to add another one to that. You don't know how that person actually truly feels inside. For sure. Yep. Right. You don't know if they feel good. They could still have body dysmorphia. They could still feel like fucking shit about themselves. And I think a lot of people see these shredded human beings and are like, that guy probably feels so good about himself. You have no fucking clue. Right. Like a lot of competitors used to be addicts. I don't think people get that. Like a lot of, it's just replacing one addiction with another, right? Like a lot of the big bodybuilders that train, you look at their story, they were an addict at one point and then they became addicted to something else, which is bodybuilding, right? So don't assume that just because someone looks a certain way that they feel a certain way, right? They could still be severely unhappy. You have no idea.
Well, and the people that are walking on stage are actually the unhealthiest people when they're on stage.
They'll all tell you that they feel like they're going to pass the fuck out the whole time they're up there.
Like 3% body fat. Yeah. And nobody's staying 3%.
It's so unsustainable.
Yeah. And like you said, you might have that 1% of people or not that many, handful of people that can stick to 3% year round. For sure. Because they're genetics. For sure. Right? Like there's some people that are like that. It's just like athletes.
And I think for like probably at least 80-90% of the people that compete, like there's a short lifespan. There's a very short lifespan before they spiral back out of control the other way. And I've actually had friends and people that I've known who have asked me about competing, and I've been like, don't fucking do it, because I know them and I know their personality, and I know that when you take that restriction to the deepest depths of like getting shredded to the bone, once you come out of that, things can go south quick, right? Like I've seen people gain 50 pounds after stepping on stage. Oh yeah. Right. And crazy. Yeah. And like the hormones are just so out of whack and they just feel like fucking garbage, and like they can't understand why they're so bloated and they feel so shitty. And like, that's why I'll say, like, if you're thinking about competing, like think hard, like don't just dive in, like you look into it, research, right? It does a lot of shitty things to your body.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of negative side effects. Like if you're a female and you lose your period, that is not normal.
That is not healthy. That's not supposed to happen.
That is not supposed to happen. And like males, like, you know, if you can't get erection, that's
I don't know about you, but I'd rather be like 20% body fat and be able to get it up.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, this is where going back on the whole fact of like, also make sure you know your hormone, like get your hormone levels checked, get your like health
get your baselines,
right? Like, you know, you're allowed to ask for monthly blood tests. You're allowed as
and you
an
should
individual, and you should 100%. Yeah. But you know, if you ask the average person,
when's the last time you got a blood test? I don't know. It was like 6. I had the flu. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Like and it's, you know, you're gonna go to the doctor when you're sick and you need a medication, but like you know, checking in with your health and
if you're driving your car around and some shit starts like smoking and like making weird noises, you're gonna look under the hood, right? Like you're not just like, it's fine. I mean, you might.
You give your car gas.
Get
like,
maintenance.
You know, you maintenance it, right? Just 100%. Like just with this kind of stuff, right? And I think going back, like I just want to use a little bit of analogy here, but like, you know, I think people are like, well, what happens if I have to take testosterone for the rest of my life? Well, I'm like, somebody who's diabetic, they need to take insulin for the rest of their life.
Yeah, 100%.
And nobody's judging that, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, if you have to take it, like, that's okay. Like, it's not a bad thing. Like, if you have to do it and it's a medication that helps you, like, that's totally fine.
Like, and it's like, I mean, whether you're doing a patch or a needle or whatever it is, people hate fucking needles, but it's like, it's going to be 3 seconds of discomfort a few times a week to feel way better all the time.
Your quality of life changes.
Yeah, 100%.
Your whole quality
100%.
of life changes, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, I think this is going, like what we were talking about, the 1% here is, and talking about athletes and things like that. It's like, you're as an individual, you do not have to train like an athlete does. You do not have to eat like an athlete does. That is their job.
Yeah, 100%.
They are getting paid millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And I was on my way here, actually I was listening to a podcast, and they're saying like the average pretty sure it was like the average NFL player, like they're dying around the age of 50 to 59.
Yeah. 100%.
Like that's crazy.
Well, I mean, what do you think's going to happen when you take someone, you push them to the absolute fucking brink of their physicality, and then you make them hit each other in the head? Yeah. Like, what do you think's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like a lot of people, like, again, going back to like people getting caught up in what they think is right, and like you see this extreme shit and you think that's what you have to do to get somewhere, and it's so far the opposite. Like, simple stuff will take you so much further.
Yeah, and it's the one thing, like, I kind of this is the question I want to ask you kind of moving forward, because this is a good, segue, is like, how do you train, again, with your experience with athletes and the, like what we would classify the general population, how have you seen it change? Like, how would you approach, I guess, a high level athlete, for how would you approach a general population person? And, does their training styles change?
Does their training style change in terms of what? Sorry. Like between the two, or like as they progress? Yeah.
So I guess, like, would you do a different workout with an athlete versus an everyday person? Or
gotcha.
Would you change exercise? Like, would you do less compound movements or more? Like,
right.
How would you change things?
It's very individually, like, very case dependent. But I mean, like, gen pop and athletes, like, it's so far apart from being the same. Like, if I have someone that's coming in and their general population, my first concern is like, what hurts? What hurts? Like, is it your back? Is it your knee? Like, what is it? Let's fix that first, right? Before we start moving into bigger things, right? Because if someone's in pain, it doesn't matter what you do with them, they're not going to get very far. So for most people, it's like figuring out like what the thing that's bothering them most is, like what the linchpin is, I guess. And then from there, we're going to unlock that first, and then we'll start progressing you slowly, right? Like, most of the stuff that I'm going to do in the beginning is going to be like body weight or like kettlebells or maybe a few cables. And I have a pain-free performance specialization, and we kind of follow this pyramid, right? So it starts with a lot of like body weight stuff, just like learning how to control your body weight, learning how to use your glutes and your core and all these sorts of things. And then from there, we sort of, like, each couple of weeks or so, we kind of progress you up to the next more difficult, more challenging movement, right? So with Gen Pop, it's very case dependent. Like, you might have a Gen Pop person that used to work out in high school, and they kind of still remember how to do some things. They kind of still have some body awareness. And then you might have someone come in and they just don't know even how to fucking move their limbs properly. You know what I mean? And then in the case of an athlete, like, odds are they're already going to have a good idea of how to move their body.
They'll have a good foundation.
Yeah, they're going to have a decent foundation for the most part. So they don't need to spend any time in that phase of like I said, like, what hurts, and then building the foundation. I mean, they might have an injury, and we might spend some time doing some work on that, but I don't need to build you from the ground up most of the time. You probably already know how to squat. You probably already know how to lunge. You probably already know how to move your body in different directions. So we can maybe start you with something a little more difficult, right? Most of the time that's the case. I don't need you to lay down on the floor and do bird dogs, really, right? Yeah. You're too strong for that, probably. I mean, again, very case dependent, but every individual that you train is going to be a different story. Yeah. Regardless of whether it's two Gen Pop people or a Gen Pop and an athlete, like, no one's going to have the same program. Sure. And I mean, I think that you should have like rough templates, right? Like, kind of like a Gen Pop, bodybuilding, every single person isn't going to like have a completely from scratch program, but we are going to modify things to make them fit you, right? Because you should never try to make your body fit an exercise. You should find ways to make the exercise fit your body. Right. Yeah, no. And, I think the big piece here is like, if
if you have a goal, like I think when we start our journey, we want longevity, we also want fat loss, and we want performance all at the same time.
Yeah.
Which are all contradicting.
For sure.
Right? If you're in a fat loss phase, your performance is going to suffer.
Sure. Yeah, you're not going to be able to do as much volume.
If your performance is the goal, your fat loss is going to that's not the goal. Longevity, same thing. You're not going to, when you're trying to be more like longevity, your performance and your fat loss, that's not the goal.
It's like when someone comes in, they're like, I want to gain 20 pounds of muscle, I want to lose 30 pounds of fat, and I want to run fast as fuck.
Yeah.
And you're just like,
and I want to live forever.
Yeah, that as well.
Right? Like I think the one thing, like realistically, you have to, and that as a coach has to be your like job to communicate.
Yeah, you have to have those coaching conversations, right?
If somebody's like, I want all those goals, well, you're like, well, you at the same time, like you can go through phases. Like you can go through what I would say is like an aesthetics phase. So like we were focusing on how you look. Then you can have like a phase where it's performance and a phase where it's longevity. But if you try to do all at once, you're just gonna crash and burn.
Yeah, exactly. And like a lot of the things are going to be kind of contradictory to each other, like you said. And a really good analogy of this is like if one rabbit ran that way and another rabbit ran that way, I'm not going to try to catch them both at the same time. I'm not going to fucking get either of them. I'm going to be standing there like a dumbass. So I'm going to pick one. I'm going to run after him hard as fuck, and I'm going to catch him, and then maybe I'll go run after the other one, right?
It might take a little bit longer.
Yeah,
right?
It might take a little bit longer.
He's been running
for sure.
He's been running further, right? And
for
that's
sure.
Totally fine.
But like you have to pick one thing, hone in on it, get really good at it, and then we pick the next thing, right? Otherwise, it's like we're not getting anywhere.
Well, yeah, then you're just running this way, then that way, this way, then that way.
Spinning the fucking wheels.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I think, I think a lot of people get upset with that, but that's just the reality of it. It's like, I'm not going to try to run a marathon and lift 1,000-pound deadlift in the same training block. It doesn't make any fucking sense.
And if you do, you're like, if you can do that, you're a phenom.
Yeah. You're, like 0.5% of the population.
Because there are people out there that can do that.
For sure.
100%.
For sure.
There are people out there, but
that doesn't mean that I can.
Yeah. And that's okay. Yeah. I think that's the thing is like we as an individual, like we look at someone, we're like, I need to be like that person. And again, if you strive to do that, I'm not going to.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Cool.
But
all for you.
Also, don't be mad at me when you don't accomplish either of them.
Yeah. Right. And you know, I think at the end of the day, the message is like, if that's something you want to do and that's where you want to strive, go for it, right? But a lot of these people, and I think that's just the message is like, especially these athletes that you see, like any sport, right? You do not know how many people got denied.
Oh, for sure.
Thousands and thousands that have gotten denied, and these people are literally the best of the best.
They're fucking genetic freaks.
Yeah.
Like people in the NFL and the NHL and all this, people don't understand, like they are freaks of nature. Yeah. They are freakishly big, freakishly strong, freakishly fast. And even if you trained 100% harder than them, it wouldn't matter.
Well, their genetics, it's just because, like it's, like I said, this is what we were talking about contradicting goals. It's like you can have an athlete that is like 6% shredded, have so much muscle and is fast and can perform and doesn't burn out and like they'll be fine. Yeah. And they might eat like shit.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Like they might just eat whatever they want and they are just like that, and that's how it is.
Yeah, 100%. Right? Like even at home, like my girlfriend is like 105 pounds. She eats like an unsupervised 8-year-old. Dude, she puts back like 4,000 calories of candy and she's like, I'm good. Doesn't gain a single pound. I'm chilling. I look at that bag of candy and I've already gained half a pound. So yeah, like you got to understand that everyone's so fucking different, dude. Yeah. And like, what works for someone else isn't necessarily going to work for you. Yeah. So
no, and that's exactly it. For me, it's just like the one big thing that I, want to, like what we're saying here is, especially talking about like athletes and training and eating. And I kind of want to stick one more point here. And I don't know if this is something that you've kind of done research on or more experience with yourself, but sometimes changing an athlete's diet too much will actually affect their performance psychologically.
Yeah.
Like, sure. If they have let's say they have a pregame meal and it's lasagna. It's like
a ritual for them.
Yeah. It's a lasagna. Well,
yeah.
Probably lasagna before a game is not the best option.
Honestly, I'd throw the fuck up personally.
Yeah, right. But
yeah,
in their head, that is their way.
That's the magic fuel.
That's the exactly. Yeah. You can be like, hey, maybe have that meal a little bit like further away from your game. But as a coach, I think it's really important. And if you're an athlete watching, I think if you're someone who wants to change your nutrition, awesome. And if you're at a very, very high level already, you know, you can make slight adjustments here and there. Maybe it's like a pre-workout like shake where you have like a carb powder or something like that, like small adjustments. Maybe it's just like taking different supplements or switching a little bit of your protein. But I don't personally, especially if you're already at a high level, changing too much can actually affect you psychologically.
Yeah,
right?
100%. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I mean, again, everyone's so individual. Everyone's so kind of case dependent. And you'll have some people that like maybe they don't want to give up their pregame lasagna, and you have other people that are like, dude, just tell me what to do. I'm here for it. Like I'll try it. Like I'll listen. And you kind of have to recognize that too. And like if grandpa 40 years ago told you to eat pregame lasagna and you've been doing it ever since, I mean, maybe you're not ready to change that. Yeah. So yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying there.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I think the kind of finishing here, I just want to, you know, ask you, what would you say is your favorite kind of person to train?
Favorite person to train?
Yeah. Like what, like, you know, I guess to make it a more specific, like, do you find you enjoy training physique athletes, or do you like general population, or do you like training athletes, or do you like training people that have injuries? Like where do you find you have your best?
I'm going to give you one very, very specific one, and then one not so specific one. So very specific is the person who has been fat forever, has been unhappy forever, and had that moment recently, like I did when I stepped on the scale and I was like, oh fuck. Basically just the person who has hit, I don't want to call it rock bottom, but they've kind of had that moment of realization, and they're like, I'm ready. Help me. Right? That person, I will take you as far as you want to go. And then another one to be like a little bit less specific, I'd say, is just like strength athletes, just people who want to get as strong as possible and lift houses.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
I think lifting heavy shit is a lot of fun.
Yeah, and then especially if you enjoy it yourself, right? Like over the years, for myself, it's been like, you know, at first you're like, I want to train this person. And then you're like, oh, maybe not.
Yeah.
This is actually really hard. Like, especially if you don't, like, for me, like, I do not want to train a physique athlete.
Yeah, no.
Like that, because I don't like it. Like that's not what I enjoy, right?
Yeah.
But like, you know, you have someone, like you said, that has gone through a similar journey as you. You can see that how you can, because you've experienced it.
Yeah.
Right. I've never experienced
it. I know how you're feeling before you even fucking tell me in those scenarios, and I know what you need to hear, and I know like I've been there before, so I know how to push you and when to back off, and like it's a different dynamic when you have someone and you truly understand what they're going through. Yeah. And I just feel like you can be a lot more helpful in those scenarios. Well,
in a mass too, like mass individuals, I think the general person is more influenced by the fitness industry.
Yeah.
Like they are, because it's like, it's always trying to find the next, like what's the next answer, right? And there's more people that are in general population that per se need help.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. So I think, you know, if you're someone who's like very specific on like who you want to train, I think, you know, starting. And again, this is something that I would like love you to chime in on too. But like from experience, I thought like online, that's what I wanted to do all the time. But it's like the best experiences that I've had is in-person experiences and then transition to in-person and online.
Right.
I don't know if that's something you experience at all yourself, but I would love to hear some kind of your tips on that.
Yeah. I definitely regardless of where I go, I will always train at least a handful of people in person. I do want to sort of move more into the online space personally, just for more freedom and more time and, you know, be able to go for runs and do hikes and shit like that and just live my life. Yeah. Because like when I started this, I was so far the other way where I'm just working all the time. So, and again, that's another thing that people should be mindful of if they want to be a trainer. You're working whenever the fuck people are available. You're not working set hours unless you don't want to make a lot of money. But yeah, I would say, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. What was the question again?
You know, if you're, looking like for example, if you're someone who has,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I'm back. I'm back on, people.
We got it.
Yeah. So transitioning more to online, just to have more freedom. But like I said, I absolutely love training people in person. So I'll never give that up. I just think that like kind of having the flexibility and the freedom to be able to kind of pick and choose like who qualifies to train with you makes it a lot more enjoyable for both you and the client, right? Because like sometimes you're kind of training people that you maybe necessarily don't fully jive with. And I think we've all probably experienced that as trainers. You have those clients that come in and you're like, fuck yes. And you have those other trainers where you're like, what time is it? What time is it? So yeah, for me, like you said, kind of like that hybrid model is cool too. Like kind of helping people get to the point where they don't need you all the time anymore is really cool to see too. Right. And kind of seeing them grow and learn. And
what's the job, right?
Yeah.
You don't always want them to work with you.
If you're working with me forever,
or once a week, even that's like, I think that's cool too, right?
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Like I have a handful of clients where they'll come see me once a week and then they're cranking out like PRs every week on their own.
I love it.
Too.
I love that stuff.
Yeah. It's great. And
I have a ton of clients that's like one, and I love it because it's like, you've seen them grow.
Yeah. And you've helped them be self-sufficient and learn how to do things on their own. And ultimately like, that's the goal with anybody. Like, I don't necessarily want to keep you forever. Like, if you want to stay with me forever and you love training with me, fucking cool.
Yeah.
But if you get to a point where you don't need me anymore, you're like, dude, I got this. That's fucking great too. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, kind of online for more flexibility, and then I'll always have that core base of people that I train.
Yeah, and usually those people that are like the one timers, like one time a week that you've gone to, they're like your friend now.
For sure.
It's like you want to know about how their day went and their weekend and how their family's doing and stuff like that.
And they miss
a
session. It's like, bro, I miss you. Where are
you?
Yeah,
and it's a cool personal job. So, but yeah, I think to end off this, man, I just first I just want to say thank you for making this happen. We were able to do this.
Appreciate it.
I just want for you to let people know where they can find you, where where you train out of, how to get how to get contacted with you and things like that. Kind of give yourself a little bit of that plug and just kind of go from there, like Instagram, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I really only am fully active on Instagram, which is at coachcody.isc. And then I also have a website you can go to as well, which is inclusivestrengthcollective.com. So those are really the two main places you can find me. I mean, I am on TikTok and stuff like that, but I'm not really active on there yet. That's something I want to work towards. But yeah, those would be the main two where you could find me at.
Cool. Yeah, no. And like again, if anybody wants to reach out to Cody or myself, we'll be putting all those Instagram handles, things like that, so you guys can get a hold. But yeah, no, I just want to say thanks everyone for listening. Thanks for Cody for coming on.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, have a good rest of your day, everyone.